read my fair share of self-help books, and while they are a great tool to use, they certainly do not compare to actually going to therapy. I am a big proponent of everyone going. You don't have to have a major crisis, you don't have to have anything huge. I just think everyone could benefit from just talking to a non-biased third party just to vent about stuff in life. Because life is hard. It's not always easy. Even little things, it's frustrating. With that being said, I do want to acknowledge that obviously going to therapy, being able to afford therapy is a privilege. I think, mental health resources should be more widely available to more people. If you feel like you are currently in a crisis, I do have some links to hotlines down below. This video is not obviously meant to be therapy at all. I am just sharing what I have learned in therapy to hopefully make you feel less alone if any of this resonates with you, or also just to kind of give you an overview of what it's been like if you're on the fence about going. So number one, you will never stop realizing things. Just like that Kylie quote from, I don't even know, like 2016, where she says, I just feel like this is the year of realizing things. That's what therapy is. If you go with the intention of doing the work and wanting to get better, work through things, however you want to word it, it's never going to stop. And sometimes it is going to be exhausting because sometimes you just want the situation to be over, but instead, now that you have the tools to recognize why something upset you or made you angry or made you feel a certain way, you're like, ooh, that made me feel this way, which reminds me of this time, which reminds me of this time, which is linked to, the thing that happened when I was 4 years old. It's good and bad because you're kind of able to recognize and weave things in, and then, like I said, sometimes you're just like, can I just get over it? Why do I have to do this? And I think sometimes you're probably like, oh, I just go and I talk about my problems and it's over. And that's not really the case because therapy just kind of gives you the tools to deal with a lot of stuff rather than making everything better. Number two, generalized anxiety disorder will manifest itself in many different ways. I did not know I had GAD before I went to therapy. It was diagnosed by my therapist, and all of the things that I was doing, I just thought I was losing my mind. For lack of a better term, that's what I thought was happening. A lot of it surrounded around hyper vigilance and me constantly checking that I locked my windows and my doors, not being able to sleep in my own bed because I felt like I couldn't have a clear view of the front door in my apartment. So I would literally stay up, would have horrible insomnia because I was just so afraid for my security. And guess what? Here's the thing. What if someone did break in? What was I gonna do? What was little old me gonna do? I don't know. But that's that's the anxiety talking. And so I find, and I probably have said this before, when my anxiety gets really bad, it will turn into that OCD hypervigilance. It will also manifest itself more in body dysmorphia, which I also have, but the body checking and the touching and the primping and all of that stuff, I will just find that it's ramped up even more. So it's not that I have OCD, it's just that is the way it manifests, which, and not that I will get into it in this video, makes sense for things that have happened in my life. But it kind of was nice to be oh, okay, I'm not insane, there is a reason this is happening. Okay. Number three, you can't change people no matter how much you would like to. I think this is a big one for a lot of people, and a lot of it for me was surrounded around dating. My brain would just be oh, okay, you have to change, something about yourself so they think that you're the prettiest, smartest, hottest girl ever, And I hate even talking about this because it makes me cringe. There's a lot of stuff where I'm it's cringy, but I give myself grace. This, I just want to shake old Amelia and be what were you doing? And obviously I know why I was doing it because I was in therapy, but Oh my god, it's so cringy. If someone doesn't like you romantically, friendship-wise, whatever, they're not going to like you. And you can't change that unless they want to be changed. Just like therapy doesn't work unless you are doing the work, someone isn't going to change no matter what you say, what you do, how you look, nothing. They have to want to make the change, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. Number 4, another really hard one to kind of grasp is your parents or guardians are human. I think this is like very subconscious as a child, where you think your parents, your guardians, you know, whomever raised you are like superhuman, where they are these perfect people because, you know, they're teaching you everything. They are taking care of you. So you just assume like they have it all together. And even when they're doing something that like you as a kid know is off, it's still like, well, they're the authority figure and they're perfect. So even though they're doing this thing that feels wrong, it must be right. Like, it's this very convoluted, weird relationship that can kind of happen. And I think even though you know, like, oh, that's not right, something's wrong here, you still have that, like, very childlike innocence of, like, but they're my parent and I love them. And then sometimes it just comes down to, like, but they're just human and they've had a whole life before and a whole set of things that they have or have not dealt with. I know Whitney Cummings says it all the time. They did the best with the tools that they had, and sometimes they don't really have that many tools. And sometimes you have to close the door and, you know, just say this relationship is not working and it does not matter that you're my parent or you're my guardian or, you know, whatever the relationship was. Number 5, you can't run forever. I feel like this is very like movie-esque in the way that I kind of see it in my brain, where, you know, like the main character is just like trying to run away from their like fate or their destiny or like the skeletons in their closet, and then eventually it, you know, like comes to a head and they have to face it head on. And it does not have to be that dramatic in your life, but eventually all the stuff will catch up to you. And I say this from personal experience. I probably should have been in therapy way earlier than I was, but, you know, life. And when I moved to Philadelphia and was on my own, I did not have any friends here. Just a lot of stuff came to a head. And I mean, the year leading up to when I finally went to therapy, I look back on that and I was like, you were not well. Like, it was a very dark period in my life for the fact that I could not keep it together. The littlest thing would set me off. I would cry all the time. I was miserable. For my 25th birthday, I have to get, like, it's not cute and fun and quirky anymore. Like, I have to get it together. And the first few therapy sessions, I just cried because it just felt like so much was built up, and like it was kind of like, oh, finally. It was almost like I could relax and let myself just be. It might happen next year, 20 years from now, but eventually you are going to have to face everything, or it's just not going to get easier. Number 6, you need to set boundaries. This one is what I am still working on. I have a lot of issues surrounding it because I don't even realize basically like what a boundary is. You know, a lot of it is kind of around the idea that like I always want to be like cool and chill and oh yeah, no problem. But it then allows me to like break promises to myself, and this has been a big one. And a lot of the time someone will give me pushback and I'll be like, okay, and then I'm like, okay, just to speak my truth, like that very therapy talk, but it is that like moment where I'm literally like close my eyes, take a deep breath to like gain the courage to just be like, actually, no. Actually, it would upset me a lot if you did that. I know I said 5 seconds ago that it was totally okay, but actually, it's not. And we can talk about it. Like, I'm fine with having a conversation around it, but this is my boundary. And it's something that I'm still working on, like I said. Number 7, your brain doesn't know when you're being sarcastic or self-deprecating in a joking way. I know I used to do this all the time, where I was like, oh, it's just like funny to be self-deprecating and everything. But my therapist told me, like, your brain, your subconscious can't tell the difference. So, you know, when you're like, oh, I just threw this old thing on. I mean, my hair is frizzy and my makeup's a mess. And like, ugh, I look so gross today. And like, maybe a little bit is like, you don't feel your best, but your brain doesn't really recognize that you're just like, kind of like, joking because maybe you're not comfortable getting a compliment, and it's like, oh, she doesn't like her hair, she doesn't like her makeup, or she doesn't like the way this looks, and that's the truth. And yeah, she just, you know, doesn't like these things about her. And when you keep saying it, it just kind of reaffirms that lie. And a lot of my therapy has been unlearning all of that stuff. I would really encourage that if you typically do that, to stop, because your brain cannot tell the difference. The last one, at least for this list, is you will need to learn who you are again. This one is really crazy, and it kind of reminds me of that meme where it's like, you know, I don't want to go to therapy, I might lose my sparkle, but meanwhile the sparkle is like being in like the most oppressive chaos pit you've ever been in. But because it's all you know, and you've put up all these like defense mechanisms, you think it's like your personality. And for the most part, it is. And that's what I mean, where like, now I'm on the other side of it. My brain always felt like it was just firing on all cylinders, and it was just this giant knot mess with like sparks flying and just like a dumpster fire. And then kind of like working through a lot of this stuff, it felt like literally rewired. And I say this all the time, and I know other people have used this term to describe what going to therapy has been like for them. And it's just been me kind of like looking around my brain and being like, whoa, it's calm here. And I don't know what I'm like without the chaos and the inner turmoil. You know, just all these things that I've had to kind of like, again, do I like this? Do I not like this? What's going on? But it's a very weird place to be, where, you know, you're almost 30 and you're like, I don't know if I know myself that well, because I only knew chaos. And now that things are calmer, you know, things aren't perfect. I still have those moments. You know, I don't think I'm ever going to be like perfect and never feel, you know, these big highs and lows ever again. I mean, I just went through one. But yeah, kind of just looking around at everything and being like, what do I like? Those are the 8 things that I have learned in therapy. The biggest things that I have learned that I feel kind of follow me in my everyday life. Like I said, I definitely have more. There's definitely more that I would love to speak about if, you know, you are interested. I hope this helped you in some way, whether it resonated or just gave you a little inside look about like kind of what therapy was like for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next one.